Thank you. My name's Steve Schultz. I wonder if you have a few books that you wish everyone would read, excluding your own and works of literature.
Excluding my own. Oh, that's too bad. It's a really good book. I'm teasing. One book that I would love people to read, and it's kind of a long read, but I think it's really worthwhile, is Doris Kearns Goodwin's Team of Rivals. It's about Abraham Lincoln and how he led during the Civil War. And what's most interesting about the book, it reminds me, and I think it will remind you, of what's best about politics, what's best about government. You know, we've gotten so cynical about politics. And understandably, we've got good reason to be cynical about politics. You know, when the drug and insurance companies spent $1 billion on lobbying over the last decade, is it any wonder that we don't have health care? That'll make you cynical. You know, when ordinary workers aren't represented in discussions about trade agreements, that'll make you cynical. And then people, they end up just opting out. But when you read this book, you realize what can happen with great leadership in Washington. You know, here's a guy who, by the way, he didn't have much experience in Washington. Everybody thought he was kind of a yokel from Illinois. Had just served in the state legislature, but he came in, and although he was extraordinarily confident in his judgment and his moral compass and his bearings, he was extraordinarily humble when it came to looking for people around him that could do the job, even if they didn't like him, even if they had been his opponents. So what he did was he actually took his key opponents in the race for the presidency and he appointed them to all these cabinet positions. And they would try to undermine him and disagree with him and, you know, issue statements that contradicted what he had said. But because they were good at their job, he didn't mind their independence, and he was able to guide the ship of state through probably the biggest crisis in our history. And it reminds me of what is possible when you take yourself out of politics and you remind yourself of what you're doing it for. You know, if you're doing it for the right reasons, if you're waking up every day thinking about the national interest and not scoring points or who's up or who's down, not even thinking about party, but thinking about what's in the best interests of the country as a whole, and in the long run, not just the short run. Not what the politically expedient thing to do is, but the right thing to do is, and his ability to be honest with the American people about the choices before them, I think is very inspiring and reminds us of what's possible. And that's the kind of politics I'd like to see restored in Washington. I mean, I'm under no illusions that anybody can restore, can match what Lincoln accomplished, and we're not in the same kinds of crises that we were during the Civil War. But I do think that there has been a time in our past when the country's come together and met our challenges in a unified way. And we weren't divided into red states or blue states. It wasn't, you know, particular race or particular religion that was concerned about a particular issue, but it was all people, all Americans, rising up to deal with the Depression or World War II or, you know, some of the major challenges that we faced in this nation. And that, I think, is the kind of spirit that we need to restore if we're going to solve our problems. And I hope all of you think that I can help do that.